Barcelona are yet again the FIFA Club World Cup champions. This after thrashing Santos 4-0 in the final. Welcome to M10 Football Webcast. I'm your host, Brian Lee. Alongside me I have Dwayne DeLocca. And Dwayne, tell me, Barcelona, are they the best team in the world? Is this one of the best teams of all time?
Well, Brian, whether you believe it or not, a couple of years ago, you've got to say that this is undoubtedly one of the greatest sides in the club world, and one of the greatest clubs we've ever seen in generations of clubs. You go all the way back to some of the master class clubs. I mean, the great AC Milan sides have passed. I mean, you go back to the Ajax Amsterdam team of years gone by, the Real Madrids in the 50s and 60s. You look at clubs like that; they're still regarded as the marquee club sides and generations in world football. But this Barcelona side, when we look back in 20 or 30 years, we're going to say, thank goodness I watched them play. Thank goodness I got to see a David Villa and a Messi combining with a Xavi and Iniesta. And I mean, you look at the side that's gone on and won the Club World Cup, and of course are favoured to go on and win the UEFA Champions League yet again after winning it as recently as 2009 and 2011. You look at them and say, just how unbeatable are they becoming? They're a little like Spain. Yes, they lose the odd game here and there, but it's really nothing more than a freak result. And that's the sort of character of this team. And when you sit down and look at the fact that they've got players like Ibrahim Afellay, they've got players like David Villa who are out at the moment, you realise just how good they could be when they're at full strength. The depth is amazing, and they've got an influential and forward-thinking young coach in Pep Guardiola, a Barcelona legend in his own right, at the helm. Just the thinking, you look at the way they play, unbelievable combination of skills. The only concern, of course, is what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years' time. Many of the players that are top players at Barcelona right now are getting towards that sell-by date, as some call it in the sports world.
Certainly, Dwayne, didn't look like any of their players were nearly past their sell-by date when they won the competition. They've got the likes of Messi and Busquets. But tell me, Dwayne, who were the key players throughout this tournament for Barcelona?
Well, you really don't need to look any further than Lionel Messi. I mean, he might not be performing well for Argentina, but when it comes to Barcelona, there's nobody else. I say that very tongue-in-cheek because there are huge contributions from the remainder of the squad, right the way from Valdez at the back, all the way through to the likes of Messi, Pedro, all up front. But I think in terms of influential players at this tournament, Lionel Messi has got to stand out. He was so hungry to play against Santos. There was that huge rivalry, of course, in the final between him and Neymar. Neymar is a young Brazilian who many believe is the greatest footballing talent in the world right now. Certainly a lot of the Portuguese-speaking world believe that is the case. I think Lionel Messi wanted to silence the critics a bit. Neymar has scored some spectacular goals, and I mean really spectacular goals. This kid can play. There's no doubt about it. The fact that Chelsea want him, the fact that Real Madrid want him, and they're willing to pay huge amounts of money for him is testament to just what ability he has.
Messi, a man with BMT, and that was clear throughout the tournament. But let's look at an African perspective at this tournament. Esperance played 2 games, lost by a single goal each. Dwayne, what went wrong for them?
I think the disappointment for Africa, first of all, is after the huge success of TP Mazembe in last year's Club World Cup, where they made it all the way through to the final and, in fact, so magnificently broke that run of Europe versus South America clubs in the final that had gone on for the previous 6 editions of this Club World Cup. We expected the African side to do something. Esperance, they were champions in Africa, but you know, it was difficult, very difficult for them at the Club World Cup. I was expecting them to do something, particularly against Al Sadd in the quarterfinals, but they conceded a very early goal, and then they managed to somehow spring to life. And in a sense, it was one of the best things that could have happened to them. Conceding the goal almost shocked them into a sense of reality and, hey, we've got to start playing now. But once they conceded that opening goal, they came back, they forced pressure on the opposition. They just failed to score when they needed to. They created so many chances. They hit the woodwork. They missed by inches. They found themselves just flirting with that offside trap, and unfortunately scored a couple of goals that were actually disallowed owing to offside. So they weren't completely outplayed. But I think conceding early goals is always going to leave you chasing the game, and that was a little difficult for Esperance from the onset. But good to see players like Osama Daragi coming back into the side, looking good, looking strong. Ultimately, though, not quite of the class of the remainder of the teams at the Club World Cup. Monterrey, who they played in the 5th and 6th place playoff match, very strong side from Central America, and were very difficult to beat. 3-2 final score there. So easily could have been 3-3 were it not for some woeful finishing. Ultimately, though, they had to settle for 6th place in the competition. It's not bad, they're still champions of Africa, but we expect to see African opposition doing a little better next time around.
It seems to be the same old story for African clubs, Dwayne, creating a lot of chances but not taking them. But at the end of the day, the best team in the world is undoubtedly Barcelona, who have won back-to-back FIFA Club World Cup titles.